Hi everyone, Harry here to talk about the American people's reaction to these first just 11 days in office for President Trump 2.0. In some ways, it's quite predictable, it seems to me. This is a man who in his first term never had the approval of half the country. Always has managed to leverage, probably more than anyone has ever been able to do, the built-in advantage, or you could say really the tilting of the scales that arises as a result of the electoral college and really certain quirks that have made it the case that even though Republicans are a minority party, they've managed to be in power or, just a hair's breadth away from it for many years. Indeed, it was only this last election where Trump actually won the popular vote to people's surprise, and people noted, Democrats to their consternation noted, that he actually seemed to have attracted some new votes, minority votes, younger voter votes. And so it raised the question, has America fundamentally changed its views about Donald Trump? And is he now beloved by a majority? So the first poll in says no. And in fact, his approval rating, which was at 49% when he took office, has over the last 10 days has gone down to 45, and perhaps as significantly, his disapproval rating has shot up to 46%. On the other hand, somewhat discouragingly, if you are a never Trumper, as I and many are for other reasons. I mean, I think his policies are really wrong-headed, but that's sort of the least of the problems with him. Nevertheless, there has been, again, not 50%, but the people who voted for him based on immigration and the economy seem, especially on immigration, they seem satisfied. So it's been really draconian. I mean, in general, you have to say this has been such a kind of carpet bombing of action in the last 11 days. I don't think that's Trump in there, calling the shots, do this, do that. I think it's a thought through campaign driven by Project 2025 and other thinkers who have been feeding him actions to do. Nevertheless, it's been a very active 11 days, so much so I think that it's kind of put Democrats back on their feet a bit and, somewhat bewildered about how to respond. But we have basically, to me, his numbers are where they historically have been. The majority don't like the guy, but he's managed to, and a subset of that majority, despise him and see him as both dangerous and the worst president in our history. But he manages to leverage the minority into the power, and he's undertaken several moves in the last 11 days that either are flat out blunders, the OMB debacle, the pardons, I think are the best example. Those are going to stick to him and not be popular. But it may be that he doesn't care. It may be that his general aggressive bully boy instincts are just, as he said to the pardons, fuck it, do them all. So I don't think, in other words, it augurs well for him in a couple years or the midterms, but I'm not sure he's thinking in those terms. He's at probably the high water mark of his ability to impose his will, and he's using it in ways that is sure to make trouble for some of the Republican members of Congress that he is so cowed. Interestingly, there's a majority of people, a pretty big majority as polls go, that oppose some of the less prominent moves. So immigration, there, seems not far from robust, but the people who voted for him for that are seem like they're satisfied, as do the same people for some of the real frontal attacks on the regulatory state. But the DEI move to basically strip away from the federal government anything having to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion, that is an unpopular, on balance initiative, you have to say. So almost 60% voiced their dissatisfaction here. And then the whole order to close DEI offices likewise. So that has been unpopular. And I just want to have a word about that. There are a lot of people who have understandable misgivings about some of the DEI measures that have really run riot in different institutions, and you might think that he is playing to them. But the orders, if you read them, are so extreme. I mean, there's a core principle among people who are, very bullish on it and people who are skittish about it, and that is you shouldn't discriminate. Whatever people think about different kinds of practices, hiring and the like, the non-discrimination principle, somebody shouldn't not get a job because they're gay or trans or or race or whatever. His orders are written so broadly as to wipe all that out as well. So it hasn't just trimmed back, and that people may have that understanding in the overall lack of support. Likewise, although 48% of Americans approve of his immigration and border stuff, which is very tough and very nasty and very Trumpian, 41 disapprove. So I would say the headline's going to be Trump's disapproval ratings shoot up, and they do. But I think we're sort of back to where we've always been with Donald Trump. The majority don't like him. A big fraction of it can't stand him. But he is, head down and barging ahead. It's all he's sort of ever done is try to aggress and double aggress to try to keep his opponents off balance. And in that sense, there is quite a bit for the people who were warning people and sounding the alarm to say, look what's happening now and I think it's going to get a lot worse when tariffs are imposed, and he's just prone to blunders. On the other hand, of course, what there doesn't seem to be, at least in this early poll, is any sort of focus on the really grave damage that he is doing to the structure of government, the checks and balances, the huge aggregation of executive power. And that's the kind of, arcane, maybe pointy-headed thing that the average person doesn't focus on. It makes me, of course, frothing at the mouth, angry, though I try to stay kind of calm and constructive. But that should be the big, to me, that's the big issue, and that's damage he's doing in real time in front of folks that is going to be hard to wind back, and that does pose a risk that we are going to be, 2/3 of the way to the authoritarian states like Hungary before we even look up and the majority of people know what's going on. So that's what's not mentioned in this poll. Otherwise, some of the things he does are quite unpopular. Some are about as popular as they've ever been. He's a mid-40s president, which is not saying very much at all. But that's who the American people elected, and that's who, in the best of worlds, we have to live with, respond to, and push back wisely against, at least until the political forces, especially Republicans in Congress, who you could look to push back against such extreme measures, actually do. And for that, of course, it may be a matter of actually hearing from their constituents. For now, it's these 11 days have been very active, I think very destructive, and especially at the level of constitutional checks on executive power, which has really taken a beating day in, day out, and where my focus, and I think our focus, needs to be to keep it from becoming in any way sort of a permanent alteration on American democracy. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.